Hello, my dear listeners. In today's video, I will continue to talk about the most important point about the economy. It's a deficit, the interest rates, and how this, situation is progressing. Because I think that's what's the center of the financial activity, and the stock market, cryptocurrencies, and precious metals, highly depending on inflation, on the deficit, on interest rate. So the first testimony is excellent. Described why this process cannot be reversed. Why how corruption is entrenched in American politics, and why those deficits are necessary. The product of this system, and it's not going to change anytime soon. Please listen how this why these deficits are necessary first.
In DC, the politicians. It's like, hey, Mitch, I invested billions of dollars in Ukraine's infrastructure, and I kind of invested in your political fundraising too, so you better give Zelensky the $20 billion he needs for ammo, otherwise Putin is going to take all my money. Or this could be done through lobbyists. It's all the same thing. Not to mention that the politicians get kickbacks. They can't take the kickbacks and bribes directly in their own name, so they use family members and they use shell corporations, just textbook procedure, right? And then the politicians send billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money to Ukraine for defense of the Ukrainian people and to protect the rich people's investments. So the politicians send billions of dollars for infrastructure in Ukraine. So think of these as grants to the rich investors. The Ukrainian government receives billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money to oversee all of this. You can think of that as a project management fee. So like all of this whole thing, it's driven by profit motive. The politicians and ultra wealthy are doing backdoor deals all over the place. Billions of dollars, Ukraine, Israel, Central America, all over the world. And the US government is using taxpayer money, your money, my money, to protect the investments of the wealthy. So I want you to know how this works if you haven't figured it out by now. It's very straightforward. So let me ask you, who is in control? The whole system runs like this. There are three controlling parties. Rich corporations, they have the money. Central bankers, they create the money. And the politicians, they create the law. So I am not upset at these parties simply because they are rich. I am disgusted because they take taxpayer money to further their own interest, and they try to disguise it as something else. So they are essentially robbing the American people of a better society and a higher standard of living. Now, I want to explain this part to you. It is so important that you understand this, and you're not going to hear this anywhere else. These groups that are in control abuse their power and oppress everyday Americans up to a certain amount. There's a limit. Because if they overdo it and oppress too much, then the people will revolt. And the people will overthrow any of these institutions, whether it's a coup or a boycott or a new system. So it is in the best interest of these three institutions to oppress, but not overdo it to the breaking point.
Okay, so we see how this mechanism of the stealing money, how it's like functioning, and why basically the first function of the government is to extract the people and spend, so the few rich people can steal a certain percentage of that, and bigger is the spending, bigger is going to be the percentage of the stolen money that get redistributed between those few rich people and those politicians involved in the process. So now let's hear about the estimate, the most official estimate about the coming American deficit.
$1 billion that's sitting aside to beef up the IRS. I thought in the competing priorities, helping Israel in this dire moment is more important than hiring more IRS agents. And so that's how we're going to do it. This is a very important principle that you talk about all the time, Larry, is a fiscal responsibility. We've gotten away from that, and we have to get back to it. With $33.6 trillion in federal debt, the Treasury Department this week said we're going to have to borrow over $1.5 trillion additionally just to keep the government in operation for the next 2 quarters. This is an unsustainable track. So these are...
Okay, so I took this segment just for this moment where he's saying 1.5 trillion for the next 2 quarters. So if you listen to my previous video, I said that in the most rosy forecast is going to be 3 trillion for the next 12 months, and this is basically comes in confirmation for that. If you have an official figure saying 1.5 trillion for the next 2 quarters, so I think the next the quarter 3 and 4 will be probably more than that, and there you go, you're already going to be over $3 trillion of the new borrowing for the next 12 months. So now let's listen to what Peter Schiff has to say about the economy and job markets, and also this is how this relates to the deficit spending.
Creates a job. That doesn't cost you and I any money. I mean, it will if we buy the product or the service that company is selling, because the wages of the workers are going to be embedded in those prices. But, we're still getting something for our money. We're buying something and, we're paying the cost. And, of course, if you don't buy those goods or services, then you don't bear the cost of those workers. But when the government hires somebody, particularly the federal government, everybody is going to bear that burden. There is no profit-generating enterprise to absorb the costs. How does the government pay for new hires? Well, out of its tax revenue. Although now it's not out of tax revenue, it's out of new borrowing, because the government is borrowing all the money to pay these workers, which is going to mean higher interest rates and more inflation. Now, by the way, I looked this morning, and the national debt is now above 33.7 trillion. So we've added 700 billion to that 33 trillion. It's taken just over 6 weeks to do that. That is a rapid pace. That annualizes out to more than 5 trillion a year addition to the national debt. So we are blowing up.
Okay, so again, you see, there you come, like there you go. If you dip a little bit further and you try to do estimates for the coming deficit, what Peter Schiff is excellent of doing, he looks over the previous 6 weeks, 700 billion, and he kind of, you know, base his forecast for the next 12 months, and you come about with 5 trillion, which is astronomical. And if this 5 trillion actually is going to be like a 3, 6, 12 months treasuries, then it means that in 6 months, 1 year, you have to refinance the whole thing. So if you want to run another 5 trillion in the next 20, like in the next year after that, you have to add the refinancing of this new, you know, basically 5 trillion, and there you go. This is this is the how much the deficits exponentially will grow. This is the whole point. Now let's take a look about what happened actually with the forecast about the rate increase for December. So you see only 15% for December. So basically it's going to remain flat because the economy remains weakening. It's actually 20% in November, which is not in January. Sorry, but in March it's already, if you see, we start getting 21% cut, possibility of 21% cut. And if I go May, it's actually going to 50%. Possibility that the rate is going to be cut in May, it's 50%. If I go in July, it's over 70%. It's over 70%. So sorry, it's actually in June, 12 June, and if I go to, at the end of July, it's probability of the cut, it's over 80%. So this tell us there is already no confidence in the strength of the U.S. economy, despite, like, you know, the mantra of the mainstream media, which is of course necessary to maintain the confidence, so this deficit not immediately destroyed and the people still have, you know, hold on to their dollars. So the government can spend their dollars before everybody else, because if the competition at some point will come in this race, people who's going to start dumping treasuries, they're going to start dumping, you know, everything that's the currency related, and at that point, you know, there's not going to be the possibility to run a deficit because the value of the currency is going to be destroyed. And, you know, finally, you like the good thing from that, it's going to put to end to this corruption, but it's going to be a chaos for, like, you know, a couple of years until, you know, things going to get organized. But I'm telling you this, it's not like because we can do something about you know, to change it, but we can do something about how you manage your personal money. And it's not a financial advice, but I've been you know, stocking this cryptocurrency XRP, which is you know, foundation of the new payment system. At least the technology gonna be implemented, and it's already on the books. So you do your own research before you make your personal financial decision. And please like the video if you find the content relevant to help me to get more views. And please comment, and thanks for watching.